Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Stephen Wicks. I'm the host of Why We Teach Moments with ThinkCERCA. And I'm joined today by Rebecca Janelli, and she's going to share with us a little bit about her journey in education. So let's go ahead and get started with that first question we have for you, Rebecca. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your journey as an educator.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Janelli, as you said. I teach at St. John Rebuff School in Niles, Illinois, and I've been here for almost 20, well, this is my 25th year. I'm almost done with my 26th year teaching, all in Catholic education and all at St. John Rebuff, actually. I have worn several hats while I've been here, and I finally settled in middle school about 6 years ago now. I live in the Des Plaines area. I'm an avid Bears and Cubs fan and love Chicago sports in general. I called Chicago my home for many years and couldn't imagine living anywhere else or doing anything else, I should say, either.
Chicago's a great town. Absolutely. And tell us, this is our first question about education now, okay? So tell us, why is literacy instruction so important to you as a teacher?
Because it's the foundation for everything else in my mind. Literacy, especially at the middle school level that I teach, if you have a strong reader and a strong writer, you have a strong communicator, and a strong communicator then builds that gap in all subjects: math, science, social studies, as well as then preparing the students for high school and beyond, and in all trades and all professions. If we start young, making our students become strong in literacy, it just opens so many doors for students and just helps them become, like I said, opens those doors and gives them that opportunities that many kids don't normally have. And that's just, if we can do that, the sky's the limit.
Absolutely. I agree. So important. And because of the pandemic, we know how learning that learning loss is something that's just terrible to see. But I'm glad that many districts and schools are rebounding somewhat because of that.
Yeah,
And it also lends to what we need in terms of critical thinking. Literacy is very, very important to our democracy and to our country. And so I'm glad that folks like you are doing the work on a daily basis.
Thank you. Right.
What is your advice to other teachers regarding the awesomeness of the teaching profession?
I think it's the hardest job you're ever going to have, but it's also the most rewarding job you're ever going to do. It's blood, sweat, tears, a work of heart, and everything in between. And you're going to have as many hats as you think you're going to wear, multiply that by 5. And then multiply that number by another 5 and another 5 and another 5. And you're going to do everything from mom, dad, custodian, nurse, doctor, and everything in between. But it's amazing when you have that student in front of you, you have that kid in front of you who had no confidence in him or herself. And all of a sudden, they're able to do something that they never thought that they could, that they never thought that they could be able to, or when they come back, I've had the honor of having students whose children are now in our building and seeing how far they've come. Or I find out that they've become teachers and finding out that I'm the inspiration for that, or somebody that I work with was the inspiration for that. And it's just that molding young minds and then being able to unfold them and helping them become who they've ultimately come to be. We're that profession that teaches all other professions.
Yes.
That's what's amazing about teaching.
Agreed. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And speaking of teaching, and ThinkCERCA here, we have many, many lessons inside of our platform. Do you have a particular lesson that kind of resonated with you and your students recently?
I have 2, actually. One was with my 6th graders who have been struggling this year, and we are they're finally writing the lesson in hydroponics, and it's to that stage where I can kind of take the training wheels off and leave them on their own a little bit more to write while I work with small groups. And they're great about finding why all the claim and is strong. And all of a sudden I had a group sitting in the back and they're thinking about the counterclaim and they're like, well, what happens if you want to grow a tree? It's not going to work in a hydroponics, farm. It's, how are you going to grow apples? And that wouldn't work. And then all of a sudden it just blew into this discussion for 3 days about can hydroponics grow trees? And they looked it up and the research just went way beyond anything I could have ever given them. And then, how they couldn't give up, apple juice and applesauce and apple, whatever, you name the blank, and apple pie. And it had nothing to do with, I don't think ThinkCERCA ever imagined anything I could have ever imagined. And this was, 12-year-olds who finally understood what a counterclaim actually was beyond what I could think, like I said, and that was great. And then the other lesson is ThinkCERCA has just started putting in novel units in. So I've been teaching the outsiders for a long time. And now ThinkCERCA has the novel units. So I've decided this time let's use the paper for my English unit because I teach English and reading, same group of kids. And I opened it up and they're like, wait, we're not teaching just a regular argumentative essay. It's going to have to do something with what we're reading. You're not just giving us a random lesson. They were excited that the two are related. Yes. And they didn't have to just have two lessons that were not related, but we could bring them together. And that was really exciting for me that they were excited to write a paper. They were a little not quite as excited when they found out it was going to be much longer than what they're used to writing, but they realized that they could do it because they had those keys and they had the skills needed, that even though it was going to be longer because it would have 3 basic body paragraphs, they figured out the pattern. And once you can figure out the pattern, then you can go from there and use what they have already. It wasn't like we were doubling up the work or inventing new work. Everything I had done in my reading class was being used in this paper. And it could be, and then ThinkCERCA could be adapted to fit the needs that I needed it to fit.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it was great to hear that engagement that was inside of the class. That seems exciting. I probably would have loved to have been on those debates.
Come on in.
Now tell me this. Can you tell me or share with us a time you tried a new strategy with your students?
With my 8th graders, we tried the core curriculum this year, which was something that I haven't done. They've been writing argumentative papers and informative papers pretty much exclusively in 6th and 7th grade. I have kids that loop for 3 years. I'm the sole English teacher, and we separate English and reading. So I'm the sole English teacher for 3 years. Good, bad, or indifferent, but that's what they get. And what's nice is, though, I can see them grow, and I know where they left off one year and where we can pick up the next year. But this year I decided with 8th grade, let's use that core curriculum. And it was something new for all of us. We really used the resources that ThinkCERCA gave, and it was interesting for them. They're like, for that idea that they didn't have to write a full paper every time. We can make it smaller, manageable chunks, the whole idea. And we really relied on the CERCA slides. We relied on each other. And okay, in this paper, I'm only focusing on this part or that part. You don't need to give me a whole thing. And that was new. And it was a change of how I thought writing should be and how they thought writing should be. That you didn't need full 5 and 6 paragraph essays every time you're writing something. It went back to how I was teaching before ThinkCERCA came about in my life. And it was more just write up to the prompt rather than writing and developing a whole paper.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's exciting. Glad to hear that. Now, here's another question.
Sure.
Has anything recently affirmed your beliefs in teaching and learning? Let's see how you tackle that.
Times change, technology changes.
Yes.
Parents change. Everything changes, but at the core, kids are still the same. They're still searching. They're still learning. They want to learn. They want to be independent learners eventually. And the fact that we need to just give them the tools and let them figure out how to build the house to a certain extent, if you mind the metaphor. um, but that's what it is, that teaching and learning are so critical and so important if we're going to change the world. And our kids know what they need to do, know how to do it. We just need to let them do it, and we need to quit getting in their way.
Yes. Great answer. Great answer. And let's shift the gears a little bit. So
Sure.
let me ask you about data. Is using data critical to the success of targeted intervention, in your opinion?
Data can be that 4-letter word sometimes in education, but I know that it also is super important. Data helps so much, and sometimes data is hard when it's simply paper to paper or a short period of time. But I love the fact that my kids do loop, so I can see how data has driven them for 3 years. And when you look at where they were from 1 year to the next, that's where my data is so important. And so I know where to place them in the beginning, but in no way do I let the data hinder where their growth can be. And that's always, my data is always my starting point, but it's never my anchor. And that's why data is so important for me, because at least it gives me a snapshot of where do kids need that initial push, that initial where I can help them. But also, if I see a kid struggling, I go back to the data to say, okay, I can't necessarily pinpoint, but what does the data do, and where does it help me to give the support that the student needs? And also, it's a snapshot for me to see, what could I be doing better? How can I be improving the needs of my students? So if everybody's low in a certain area, then that's a reflection on me more it is on them, because I haven't given them the tools that they need to improve in that particular area.
Yes, it's good to see, individually, but then also the trends as a class, and then that informs you on your instruction. Glad to hear that. And here's another question. Is there a time that you championed an initiative at your school?
ThinkCERCA. I'll be honest with you, it totally and completely was. I was part of the LEAP program a few years ago. It's probably more than a few years ago now. And I was the only one that wanted ThinkCERCA, but I was the only true writing teacher at the time. And I needed a program that kind of brought everything together. And everybody else was like, well, maybe. It looks like a hard work. It doesn't look like what we're doing. We're not sure how to use it. And I'm like, trust me, it'll be okay. And my principal was like, well, we'll use it for a year. And because it was the free trial for us, because we were part of the LEAP program. And she's like, we'll give it to you for a year, and after that, we'll see what else. And I just fought tooth and nail. I'm like, I can make this work. I can make this work. I can make this work. And then I've been through 3 principals since, and I'm like, I'm making this work. I'm making this work. I'm making this work. Please don't take this away from me. And I'm now pushed it out to, really make our science and social studies teachers really look at it. And I would love to see it used at our 4th and 5th grade level next year. And I think we're finally at that place where it could be very closely used, after this time now.
Yes. Well, I'm pretty sure you all are going to be excited about some of the new enhancements that we're adding, and we're in beta right now for our AI automated feedback too. So
yeah, I saw that as one of the articles, and I was like, oh, I liked that.
Yes. It's super exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Ms. Janelli, thank you so much for taking some time out and speaking with us today. We really appreciate it.
Anytime. I love talking to you as well. And thank you for championing ThinkCERCA and educators as well.